very, very keen to speak here in the front row.
I find it all really exciting, alternative media. I've been following it for a long time. What I am kind of concerned about, as a number of people, is that we start to suffer from the same problems as mainstream media, where we have to discern what is news and what is opinion piece, because it's great, you know, getting all of your opinions, you know, I love them, but if you're going to have a credible alternative, we need to have investigative journalism with actual news to report. And obviously there's a dilemma there because that costs money, and it's how do we get around that? You know, do we have local reporters? Or?
Yeah, say a question for everyone here just before we go to answering that quick, because that is a good point. There is a big difference between news and opinion, but the problem is that creating good news stories costs money, it needs resources, and people need to be paid to do it as a job. You can't really do that in your free time. You need a wage to do that, and it should be a good wage. It should be something you can sustain a decent living on. So, put your hands up if you read new media outlets. If you read a new media outlet, one of the digital ones, any of them, regularly, put your hands up. Fairly regularly. And then put your hands up. And then put your hands up if you fund any of them. Put your hands up if you don't fund any of them. And that's a big issue for us. Sometimes Common Space could have, like, in one of our best months, we had nearly 200,000 unique users a month. If a fraction of those people were to donate a £5 a month to Common Space, we'd be in a very different position than we're in. It is a big issue about money, finance, and then how it's easy to produce opinion, and I think that's one of the reasons we see so much of this in mainstream media now as well, is it actually is just cheaper to produce opinion pieces, and it kind of fills the void of news that's been disappearing now for years. So what's the answer to that question? Hilary, how do you feel about that?
Well, I just got one thought, which is we get a lot of reports from people, you know, in the middle of struggles or just having seen something going on that they know to be false, and then they write to us, and they've not written it in a way which is very accessible. You know, it just needs a bit of work. So that I think sometimes it's a matter of funding, not so much for investigative journalism, but more for really sympathetic and good editors to kind of make full use of all the knowledge and insight and sort of information that there is amongst the mass of readers. So it's kind of trying to work through Mike's point about a more sharing, sort of less top-down media, and work out what are the sort of material conditions for that. Because I think it does mean a new breed of editors, really. Yeah,
I think that is a good, because we do that with Common Space quite a lot. Some of our news actually comes from just helping other people to take what they know is going on and put that into a journalistic format and sort of tick the boxes of what good journalism would be. But Open Democracy, I mean, it's quite analytical pieces you do rather than news as well.
So we mostly do analysis. We do, I mean, I think this you know, illustrates the story in a way. I have a colleague who is a full-time investigative journalist, and she works particularly on things around sort of detention centres, G4S, that kind of world, and mostly when there's a story comes out about G4S, it's her that's done the work on it. So you've got her and you've got me, and I can publish 3 stories a day from, you know, me writing comment pieces and more, you know, commissioning people sending things in and so on. She publishes maybe about 1 story a month. Now she works probably harder than I do. It's just that to get one solid story exposing what G4S is doing in this children's home in Doncaster or whatever it is takes as long as, you know, as a month in which I can publish a few hundred pieces. And that is just the nature of journalism. And I do agree with Hilary that there's also an important function in supporting people who want to tell their own stories, and that is the thing we need to invest in more. But, you know, that kind of hard investigative journalism, you know, G4S staff are not going to come forward and say, yeah, I did kind of kill that kid, normally. Like, which is the kind of story she exposes. Like, it's because she's there being paid, and there's only, you know, we can only afford to pay one of her, and that's just one company she basically deals with almost all the time. And, you know, the question was asked earlier about we should be spying on PwC. Well, that is the job of investigative journalists. That's exactly what investigative journalists should be doing, but there's no one doing that, because, as you know, as everyone said, it's much, as a journalistic model, it's much cheaper to pay people to do what I do, which is writing comment analysis, than it is to pay people to do what Claire does, which is producing maybe one story a month, doing investigation. But what she does is much more valuable, because I've got nothing to comment on, unless there's someone exposing the facts. There was a study a few years ago, and I'm sure this is worse now, but which showed that 95% of online content, like discussion sites, blogs, etc., was based on news stories gathered by the three main global news agencies, which means that even the most radical comment you got, the basic facts on which they were basing their opinion, the news which was driving that agenda, was being gathered by these three massive corporations. That's a massive problem.
Mike, you will maybe make this the last contribution because time is marching on, but you run a commentary website. Do you think in the new media that we are guilty, as well as mainstream, of blurring that line between news and opinion?
Well, I think that Common Space and the Ferret are an essential part of that landscape because they focus more on news. And I think that there's a role for comment and opinion analysis because we are overwhelmed with information. And comment does serve a purpose in offering some filter and some explanation, which is essential. Otherwise, we just get a deluge of that information. So I think, as I said before, collaboration and consolidation is key. And sitting next to the content that you provide in news and the Ferret, which needs support as well, provides that. But I don't think it's an either or. I think it's both that will enrich us.
We at Common Space, we decided to focus solely on news. So our in-house team, it's me and 3 journalists. None of us write any opinion or analysis kind of stuff for Common Space. The in-house paid team only do news, and the opinion stuff that you see on Common Space, that's completely from contributors. We don't commission it because we don't have a freelance budget to pay for it. So it's really basically, if you want to have a say on what's going on, then the platform is there to use. So I think within the new media, a lot of the things that have been brought up, there are efforts all of us are making here to try and address them, but it's just within very restricted circumstances a lot of the time. But it's definitely, I think, you know, from all the contributions that we've heard and from what you can see on your laptops or your smartphones when you go online, things have changed dramatically when it comes to the media landscape because of digital, and I don't think that that's going to change. I think it's going to continue to evolve, and the exciting thing for us is how we can use those tools to try and create a fairer, more balanced media landscape. So thank you very much to the panel. Round of applause again for everyone.